Reconfiguration Committee Report, Ms. Renee Scott.
All right, I'm here with help tonight. So I'm here to discuss the findings of the Reconfiguration Committee. So if I could have the members of the Reconfiguration Committee stand and introduce yourselves to the board, please. Go for it.
Hi, Summer Miller, Orchestra.
Hello, I'm Jimmy Deal. I work at Valley State Bank.
I'm Cindy Under, I'm a parent and I'm a realtor.
Trevor Henningsen, I teach 5th and 6th grade at Plymouth.
Brian Dinkle, I teach 8th grade at King Force.
Janice Smith, Principal, Charles Jones.
Tilly Howell, I teach 3rd grade at Georgia Matthews.
Jared Stalton, Principal K.
Rafaela Solis, Principal at Rafael Jones.
Michael Rumden, 6th grade, Bernadine 6.
Karen Merle, Principal at Judy Barker, and Associate Principal at A.P.
Thank you. I'm going to ask them to jump in if I miss anything. I also will recognize Amanda Harms. She is the Deputy Board Clerk, and she came to every meeting and took immaculate notes and kept me in order. And Dr. Tim Hannigan served as the board representative as well. So there are other members that are listed on here that aren't in attendance tonight, but I thought we had great membership. We had an equal representative of certified staff versus community members. 2 fewer principals, but principals that represented all grade levels. Same with certified staff, and parents really represented a wide range in the business community as well as a wide range of schools. So the purpose of the committee was to look at Board Goal 2.5, which said we would evaluate the elementary, intermediate, and middle school configurations to determine if reorganization would lead to increased student achievement and efficiency. And the rest of that goal says, and determine the most appropriate number of schools at each level. However, our committee just focused on the bolded part because it was a moot point whether or not to go on to Part B until we made a determination as to whether or not reconfiguration was a viable option. So the purpose of our committee really stopped at, would it lead to increase or could it potentially lead to increased achievement and efficiency? The committee started meeting in November, mid-November, and we pretty religiously met 2 times per month until the end of April. There was 1 snow day that we didn't meet, but I opened it up to make it a work time if anyone wanted to come, and so that was funny. We set norms in a lot of the first couple meetings, and the committee can definitely interrupt me if I'm incorrect, but was really to take a look at ourselves and put aside our misconceptions or preconceptions and build some trust with each other, because some of the topics we would talk about had some emotional ties to them. I just think if you teach in a K-6 building, a 5-6 center, a K-4 building, you have emotional ties to those buildings. And as a parent, if you've dropped off kids to the same building for many years, you have emotional ties. So we really tried to set up the norms around, let's look at the data and the facts to make our decisions. We also brainstormed pretty much every potential configuration that could exist. For example, research will show one of the top configurations for student achievement is K-8. Or can you imagine 17 K-8 buildings in this district? That's not a viable option for our district. So it was narrowed down to 3 considerations. Continue to keep the current configuration, consider a K-5, 6-8 configuration, or consider a K-6, 7-8 configuration. After we determined the configuration potential possibilities, we looked at what data would we need to drive that decision making. And so we knew that we needed to survey a wide variety of people. That would be parents, community members, staff members, and students. We wanted to look at other district configurations, not only in the state, but maybe similar to our district makeup in other states. For example, we looked where there were Tyson plants across the United States, and we tried to find districts that might mirror that and what they were doing in terms of configuration. We looked at graduation rates, assessment data, discipline data, social emotional data, as well as data from curriculum and instruction standpoint. And from all of that discussion, we formed subcommittees. So we only had to become experts in our area of research. So a lot of our meetings were working meetings, like to find information about state assessment scores for our district and similar districts and what their configurations were like, graduation rates. And some of that data proved very effective and some of it wasn't as helpful as others. So then what we did is every subcommittee reported out their findings. And we utilized a rubric to kind of score those findings. And that rubric wasn't a vote, it was literally to drive the discussion. So let me pull up the rubric just so you can see what it looked like. So you got 0 points on the rubric if there was no evidence or if your point was pretty weak. You got a point for good or average or a point for strong or above average. And for every topic area, you had a total of 3 points to assign. So you could play around, you could give all 3 of your points to an area, you could give 1, 1, and 1, you could give 0. And so we then gave points for every component. So that was community survey results, student survey results, on down the line. And as you can see, from the scores right here in this line, from the rubric, the data that we gathered was the strongest total score based on all the data presented was ranked, the K5-6-8 configuration came out pretty clearly the strongest ranking from that rubric. Then the rubric, after we filled out those rubrics, we turned those over to Amanda. She got it all prettied up for us and made sense out of it. And we took a week and a half hiatus. And then we came back and we looked through those rubrics and we started the discussion. And the discussion literally gave everyone who attended that meeting last words. You know, final thoughts, final ahas from the data that was presented, from the rubric that we saw scored, just a lot of very good dialogue and discussion. And so from those results, then we actually took a paper vote. And I said to the group, you want me to email the results or do you want Amanda to count them? And they all said, we're not leaving here. We've spent since November working on this committee. We want to know what those results showed. So we kind of came up with 2 recommendations as per how the board goal is stated. The first one is we do recommend that the board consider a reconfiguration option. And our recommendation for that option, based on our findings, would be K5, 6-8 configuration. Now, this is not the be-all, end-all. This is not we're asking the board to make a decision at this point. What we're saying is, based on our recommendation over the next several meetings, we would maybe like you to give some direction, and potentially then, if the board would choose this recommendation, another committee would be formed to start exploring options. We would like to give this committee the first shot at being a part of that committee because they've spent a lot of time, but this will involve a lot of additional stakeholders as well. So committee members, thoughts, comments, feedback?
The rubric kind of says it all.
Yeah. I just want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to be part of this committee because it will eventually affect all of us in some way, shape, or form. Middle school is going to affect what we do there. It's going to affect what's going on in the elementary schools as well. So thank you for letting me be a part of it.
You know, I can't help but pipe up but say we can't do it without you either. I mean, it's a wonderful process you put together. I think the skill set of the leader facilitator of that is certainly there to accomplish. And then the mix of the folks, just from what I can see, was diverse, and the folks were engaged. You all were engaged, and that's the kind of thing that I think is just invaluable to the community, first of all, but also to us as well. It's the beginning of a long road, and so I appreciate it. Back at you, so to speak.
Yes.
I guess, as somebody who's been born and raised here and gonna die here likely, it was really important for me to get be able to sleep at night with what the community had to say. And I really think that we tried our very best to hear from everybody in the community, whether it was the teachers, whether it was parents, whether it was students. We really tried to find every way possible to reach those viewpoints so that we could weigh all of those options in our rubric.
I would just ask, and of course I would like to thank you all for giving your time as well, but I would like to ask if you could suggest anything different or that would be helpful to a committee such as this. Is there anything that comes to mind? You mean like feedback from this particular committee, like how we can make this type of committee better? Right. Was there anything else that could have been? This seems like so very comprehensive. So I'm just wondering, from your point of view, did you feel like what you learned, what you knew, the information that you were provided, and how that it made you comfortable to make a decision? Well, I know I would say that it was very structured, very task-oriented, just respected everybody's time, but also just, I think because everything was, I don't want to say delegated out, but it was very specific. Like you knew exactly what you were looking for, because we created subcommittees, or and then we just sort of knew what we were needing to find out, needing to do.
Well, and the subcommittees only had 2 or 3 people in them, and so then you could converse by email or just spend time during the meeting working. And so your teammates were right there, and you just worked, and you got the information that you needed, and okay, you find this on this town, and you find this on this town, and and then we had a Google Doc, and as you found information, you just typed it up, and it was cool because it just popped up on the screen. You knew what everybody else was doing because it was all there.
And I would say, as a parent, I felt that my voice was just as important as a teacher's or an administrator's, and that's really important because even though I don't get paid to be in the district, I am a consumer, so to speak, and I think that our voices as parents are very important. I mean, and we all want what's best for the kids, so I appreciated being able to be on the committee, but also just to know that at least your voice is being heard, and so that's important. And I hope everybody else feels the same. But
most definitely, as another parent and just community member, and no involvement in education whatsoever, it very easily could have been intimidating for us being with all the other educators and staff, but it wasn't at all. And so I would recommend that strongly going forward, is make sure you include community members, non-education people, just because whatever is done next, I think it'll be very important that the community feels as though they had a say in that they were part of that decision, whatever the decision is. So.
Okay.
And I would say the way Renee structured it, just so we all knew the boundaries, we knew the norms, how we should share ideas, how to respectfully disagree with each other, and to try to set aside our emotions and just see the facts and see the research and the data and what's best for our kids. I think that helped us all really drive our decision. And for me, the K-5 was definitely the biggest one.
And Jean, did you have a question?
I did have a question for you. I was just wondering if there were any particular factors or drivers that led to the K-5, 6, 8 as opposed to K-6, 7, 8 decision. I mean,
The biggest deals?
why would we break at K-5?
The curriculum is set up K-5, 6, 8, and that was something that came up along with transitions, because transitions also go with the K-5 or K-6, the less transitions, but really state and national curriculum is set up K-5, 6, 8, and that was something that came out from the surveys.
One of the other things that we did find out in reading through some articles and such the fewer transitions that you have between buildings, the better achievement scores seem to reflect that. Another thing we all talked about was those building relationships.
Yeah.
The longer you spend in the building, the better opportunity teachers will have to build relationships with students, and vice versa. Students can become more comfortable with the teachers that they are working with and they see every day. As it's configured right now, 5th grade you've got them for 2 years. I know 5th and 6th graders, you want to get them out there quickly. 7th and 8th grade aren't much better, trust me. But high school you get them for 4 years, elementary you've got them for 5 years, 6 years. But that time period between 5th and 8th grade, when they're really trying to figure out who they are, and you're switching the people that they deal with on a daily basis every 2 years, I think that's going to make a huge impact moving forward.
So there's a curriculum aspect of it as well as a social emotional type of rationale for that.
Speaking on, as a math teacher, the curriculum that we use now, which is the Eureka Math Engage New York, K-5 is the story of numbers. 6-8 is the story of ratios and proportions, and 9-12 is something completely different. I don't know what their story is, so I apologize. I haven't done that one yet.
There was a behavioral data aspect of it too. Between 5th and 6th grade, the number of referrals was really different, and that's something we looked at closely as well for building relationships and trying to prevent that as well.
I just had one more question. What about licensing of teachers and staff members? Does that have any effect on what grade level? For instance, with math, is there a difference between a math teacher at 6th grade or 8th grade?
So it kind of depends on when you need your license. For other people like me, you can get a K-9 license and be licensed at all those areas. Our newer licenses are K-6, and then you get a secondary license 7 through 12, and then it's practicing to whatever specialty or content area that might be.
That's an interesting
So
question.
do we feel confident that we would be able to staff it?
That was one thing that got brought up that was very interesting to me, being someone that's not involved in education. Was some of the things that I never even thought about was, had they made the point that there is some difficulty in recruitment with the current structure because it is so odd. That was one of the things that we picked up on right away, is that how, of all the schools we looked at, and we went out to other states, all over the region, I think we found one that was structured the way ours is, or configured the way ours was. And so it becomes a recruitment challenge because it is so unique. And that's a little different than licensing, but it does kind of tie in together. And that was something I had never even thought about because I wasn't involved in that. And then when we looked at the graduation rate data, and that was one thing that did pop off the page. The data wasn't very compelling as far as graduation rates. It really didn't tell us much. But one thing it did tell us was that most schools that we looked at, the large majority of them had a K-5, 6, 8 configuration. So that's what caught my attention.
Tim, did you have?
Just a couple of comments, if I could, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I echo the board. Thank you for your time. Working all day and then having to go to 2-3 hour meetings, and Dr. Hannigan would always report on the length of the meeting, but he said they were always very good and attended. And I know you guys didn't talk about cost of doing this. I guess my concern as a board member is, there is a cost to doing this, and people in the community are going to have to pay for that cost. And the people in the community, the first thing they're going to ask us is, why did we do what we did? Why did you say we needed a 5th and 6th grade center? Why did you say we needed to go 7, 8? Because those same conversations that you guys all had about less transitions and making kids feel more comfortable in one school were back then the same conversations that are going to happen again today. So my concern as a board member is how do we explain that to the community and ask them, pay or vote on bond to change what we asked, not us, I guess, but the board asked you to build these other schools. So that's probably my biggest concern. How do we do that? And then the other part of that, I mean, we've had, I think, 2-3 elementary schools since I've been on the board that said they wanted their schools to be K through 6. So now you're saying they want them to be K through 5, and maybe not you or them, I guess. I don't want to point fingers. It's just those are concerns that I can think of off the top of my head. I know you guys looked at a lot of different surveys and asked a lot of different questions. I'm also wondering, like Gene, did you guys look at the pros and cons of each? Okay. Did you document that? Because I'd really like to see that. I haven't seen that
Yeah,
documentation.
that was all of our answers and comments. As each group made their presentation, we made notes on our rubric. And Amanda was really great to kind of put all of those comments on there, and then it totaled it all up. And it may not make sense because, you know, those are personal comments and things like that, but we did discuss those things. Now, we were not necessarily allowed to talk about what happens if. Renee was very good to keep us on task of what is best for kids. And if this does go through, that is the angle we have to take with the community is, this is best for kids because X, Y, Z. You know.
And let me apologize. We might have got that documentation. I might have not seen it. So, but if we can get it again, I'd like to look at that for sure.
I may or may not have. It's confusing because it's pretty random.
Okay.
But I would be glad to share it.
Maybe we can come and visit
You bet.
and go
Yeah.
through it.
Yeah.
And as I understand it, that's the purpose of the rubric in part was that sort of
It just
organized
drove
discussion.
the discussion. Yeah, it was just to help organize the discussion.
You know, Mr. Cruz, I was just going to say, one thing is, so I just want you guys to know, one of the reasons why I joined is I was pretty passionate at the beginning to really fight for the K to 6. But, so we really did look at that. I was really coming in strong as a firm believer of that. However, that's just not what the evidence proved is what is necessarily what's best and for our specific district compared to districts like ours. And so sometimes we have to let go, which is the whole point of the exercise or the committee, to let go of our maybe individual biases and try to move forward and know what's best for our district. Also, as far as the moving forward with the bond issue, I would like to just say as a parent, and I wasn't here when you built the 5th and 6th grade center, so I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing it was just a matter of overcrowding. And so probably you pushed, I don't know, I'm guessing it was a matter of overcrowding and what do we do with the students? You know, and so I think just as a parent and as a community member, I think we just have to really prove what's best for kids. And since we don't know that, yet like how you feel, and then we don't also know what the bond issue would even look like at this point, I think it might be a little hard for us to speak to how to go about getting the community to support that at this time. Does that make sense? Like I would know it would be really hard for me to, until are we building this many schools, or are we doing that? And that would be hard until we know that, but I don't know. I just really think that we just need to get out there and speak with passion and tell them, tell the community this is what we need, and really just try to have them support the
And I understand that. I understand that you guys' task wasn't, well, okay, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to pay for it.
Yes.
I get that. So there's going to be a lot more discussion.
If we had done that, we would sure know what
We might form you on the next committee, so.
Yeah, all of them were paying for it.
Oh, okay. That's very, I'm ready to vote.
Yeah, Tim, thank you for your comments, and as always, you're very practical and globally you're thinking there, and I'm glad it's come out that this is sort of the first step in the process, focusing on what's best for kids, and then we've got other community conversations to come, to be had, and a process, hopefully. There was an arm up here.
We based also on 2 different surveys, one that was done by telephone when this high school was built, and then one that we did ourselves. And on both of those surveys, it was voiced that there needed to be a change at this level.
Laura, do you have a question?
I think comments, I guess. One thing that I find interesting with this, and I think, and kind of going to what Tim said too, this is going to be a conversation that boards will have for a long time to come. I remember being in 6th grade and during current events reporting each week what the school board was talking about with regard to whether or not we were going to go to K-5 and 6-8, because none of the 6th graders wanted to go to the middle school. We wanted to stay in the elementary school. I mean, it was a big deal for our 6th grade class. So I can imagine in another 10, 15 years, we're going to be having this conversation. Should it be K-6 again and 7-8? I mean, this is just going to be an ongoing thing with new research coming out and seeing how things go. You know, I was a big proponent coming into when I came onto the board about seeing what we could do to change it to K-6. So I was kind of in your position as well, because that's what I was used to growing up. And the 5th and 6th grade centers just didn't make any sense to me, especially with the research on the transitions. But when I sat down and talked with Dr. Ava about it, so I'm dating myself here, you know, and he talked about the K-5 and the 6-8 configuration probably being one of the best ones that we could look at based off of our facilities that we have and the curriculum. So, which is part of the reason why I didn't want to participate in the committee, because I had such strong feelings on it and I didn't want that to bias come in any fashion. So I'm really excited about the prospects. We'll see what happens.
Well, yeah, some of what you just said is to come now. And, you know, you have a child and you want to do what's best for them, but what can you do? You've got to look at what the possibilities really are. And as a segue, what you just said as a board member, I do want to recognize the board member that did spend the time to attend those committee meetings. And Dr. Hannigan, you have some comments.
Yeah, first off, I was thinking about how many different committees, subcommittees, boards I've been on in the 22 years that I've been in Garden City. And I don't remember dealing with as weighty of a decision in as positive, as well structured, and as well led in a way that this was. And you can hear in the voices of the people that are here tonight that they're invested in it. When they're invested in it, they stayed invested in it because the process that Renee set up for us made everyone feel equally invested in what we were trying to accomplish. And it's reflected in their voices tonight. And I found myself really as an observer, just amazed at the process. And I, with my personal biases, as we went through the meetings, actually moved my own ideas around about what I thought we should be doing. And I started off with the concern that Tim expressed, which is, how do we get this thing passed? And then, of course, got absorbed in what's really best for the kids. And everyone out there, they put a ton of work in this. They really did. And they did that because they wanted to, because they were invested in it, because it really mattered to them. And again, Renee managed to structure it in a way. I don't know how you could take a topic like this and keep everyone as structured and as focused. And that's an enormous task. And she did an amazing job.
Other comments or questions at this point? Thank you so much for the presentation. Any
So we're
comments
not,
on where we go from
we're not
here?
asking for a decision at this time, but we would like at some point for this to be another point of discussion, maybe if you need any additional information. Because if you do want to move forward in any direction, even if it's current configuration, we feel like a committee needs to be formed to look at what we have currently, what would K-5, 6-8 look like. I mean, I think, but we want direction from the board as to next steps. And so not tomorrow, but I would say in the next 1 to 2 months, would that be?
I think we'll have this on the agenda for your next meeting. You may be ready to make a decision, you may need a little more time. But our thinking is that once you tell us what you as a board believe is the preferred configuration, then another committee will put together options under that configuration of what that could look like, along
along with costs, because there potentially would be costs, and so the board could begin to understand from all angles. I think you got great work here saying this is what the group believes is best for our students. Now, what would it take to really put that into practice? Because no matter which of these the board chooses, there's a number of different things we can do. You know, we talked about tonight, we have some space challenges with our early childhood program. Hopefully we're going to have more if we're able to serve more kids. So even with the current configuration, there will be some challenges that are coming to us. And we'll put together that committee lots of information about what options we have. So I don't want to leave this thing just kind of floating out there. We'll put it on the agenda, and if you're ready to make a decision next time, great. If you need another meeting or two, then we'll give you the time that you need. But I think we do want to move forward.
Okay, so the intent of this is to have an across-the-board consistency as opposed to kind of what we've got now, which is some schools have one great
Yes,
configuration, other
yes.
schools.
Every school will be the same. They're either K-5 or they're 6-8.
And that's an excellent question that we didn't bring up, but yes, we all decided that's our recommendation as well, is that every one is the same. Yes.
Okay. Well, with that, and I too want to thank the committee for all the time and effort that you put in. It's obvious that this was thorough and that you invested a lot in that, and we really appreciate that. This is not an easy issue to look at, and the fact that you are as unified on this as you are, and as Dr. Hannigan said, how well you speak of the process. Thanks, and we really appreciate all you've put in. Yeah, echo that, and I'm just going to clap. But it's a team effort that's ongoing. Thank you very much for your recommendation. I think on behalf of the board, we simply accept it. Thank you very much. And as traditionally we have done, we will let it ruminate a little, if that's the right term, till next board meeting, but with the full intent of not losing momentum, information, institutional knowledge, all of that. A facilitator. Maybe we lose a facilitator eventually. Anyway, one more comment.
No, I just have a request. Can we put the PowerPoint or something on the website and or Facebook to really promote that we are going to be discussing this at the next meeting? You know, and maybe include it in Roy's update that he does on BBS, just so we don't have anyone coming, if we make a decision next time, coming back in June saying, I didn't know about it. I mean, I'd like to get it out there as much as possible.
Yes.
So.
Okay, Amanda's here, so good suggestion. Heck, might even highlight and say active consideration of the board or something.
We also have a link to the raw data, isn't that right?
Yeah, I will.
Amanda?
I can give it to you.
You can forward the link to the raw data that we used.
I think it's a wonderful suggestion to keep the momentum, as we've said, going. So, any other comments on that? Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Renee.
Okay, we're ready for agenda item G, unfinished business. Okay. Before I get to unfinished business,